everyone, and thank you for joining us for episode 10 of the Convention of States Michigan podcast. My name is Robin Riddell, and I'm the State Communications Coordinator and the host of this podcast.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Olford. I am a district captain volunteer for Convention of States. I work with Robin doing a lot of our different communication stuff in and around kind of the Thumb area. I live in St. Clair, and I'm a district captain as well, so I do some in-person events and do some in-person volunteering and that type of thing in and around kind of the St. Clair County Thumb part of Michigan. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here today, and welcome to both of our guests as well.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm excited about our discussion today. Convention of States is for people who believe in self-governance. We treasure our independence and liberties as provided for in the Constitution. We often ask, who decides? Today, our topic is education. Our panel is 3 of our state volunteers who are also mothers. Yes, that includes Kelly. Today, she's not only a co-host, she's going to be a panelist because she is a mother. Like many of our other volunteers who balance their careers with volunteering and parenting, these 3 women have inspired me since the very beginning with their dedication and courage to live their values every single day. I'm going to throw the first question out to Jen. Jen, you're a mother of 7-year-old quadruplets. Did I say that right? Quadruplets? Quadruplets. Tell us why you decided to become a volunteer with Convention of States.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, so I was thinking about this earlier. We kind of have this ongoing conversation at my house with the kids where they ask me if they can do a thing, and I say, well, in the past, when you've been allowed to do this thing, XYZ has happened pretty consistently, so I'm going to say no. And they inevitably come back to me and say, but this time it's going to be different. And I'm sure all moms understand that. This time it's going to be different. And my response is always, what speaks more loudly to me, your actions or your words? And of course, it's our actions. And I realized it was the same thing in my life. You know, I have known about Convention of States for a decade now, and I've talked about it. I've rooted for it from the sidelines. Boy, I hope this thing goes through. Wouldn't this be amazing? But I never did anything. And in these past couple of years, I finally decided it was time to practice what I preach and get off the sideline.
What a great leadership example for your children.
What is it, in what capacity do you volunteer with Convention of States here in Michigan?
I'm a content writer. So right now I do some blogs, and I also maintain some postings for getting Convention of State information out to different sources around the state.
Oh, very good.
Thanks.
And Sarah, now to you. You actually have 6 kids, all under the age of 13 that you actually homeschool as well. You are also the state director for Convention of States, which is an enormously huge responsibility. And if I could say so personally from all of us, you do a fantastic job at. How do you find the time to be able to also volunteer and spend some time with Convention of States as well?
I'm going to say it's a day by the grace of God thing. And it's little bits here and there. If you go looking through your life and you say, I can only do this if I can see 5 hours altogether in which I will be able to volunteer, you will never volunteer. Frankly, if you're trying to look for 2 hours undisturbed, or even 1 hour undisturbed a lot of the time, you will never get it done. I answer emails between checking math and checking English. And, sometimes it's a little crazy. I'm probably not the best example, but it gets done, and it gets done by the grace of God. And it's just every day getting up and going. I know Robin often says this, I'm going to do something today. However big, however small, I'm going to do something. And some days that something is a lot, and some days that something is not very much. But we do something, and that is how you have to approach every single position. And I would say real quick for those of you who are considering volunteering, it's not something where you start and automatically you figure out how to fit it into your life. You know, it's going to be a learning curve. And for each, I've had quite a history of changing positions through my time in Convention Estates. I started as a volunteer, then I became a district captain, then a regional captain, then I took on more area. And every time the job got bigger, there was an adjustment period where I had to look at my life and go, how in the world, Lord, am I going to do this? And you do eventually figure it out. And for me, I may be a slow learner. It takes me a few months to figure out how to balance it all again. And if when you start, you expect it all to be balanced from the very beginning, you will probably be disappointed and discouraged. But if you give it that couple of months, you will find a way to put it here or put it there. You'll find those little openings in your week where you can naturally start saying, okay, when I sit down after I do such and such with the kids and I'm going to eat my lunch by myself, then I'll answer an email. Or when I have this opening, I'll do that. And you can start figuring those things out. So it takes some time, but you can absolutely do it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now, Kelly, you have 2 kids under the age of 5. You also have a career as an attorney, and yet you find time to volunteer countless hours for Convention Estates. And recently you mentioned the desire to homeschool your kids. What is influencing that decision?
Well, for me, I mean, yeah, my kids are still even a little bit younger than Jen's and Sarah's. So I'm barely in like the preschool stage of things, which isn't even like real school. We're just like playing and learning our letters and things at the same time. So that's more fun stuff than anything. But what's been kind of influencing my decision is that I've been doing it now for a couple of years now with my daughter, who's my older one. She's almost 4. And we've been doing it now for a couple of years. And I kind of started doing it without even really realizing that's what I was doing. And I just kind of got into it, and it's just, she turned 2 and it was just kind of well, of course, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take some time out of our morning to learn some letters and learn some numbers and learn our shapes. And we're going to practice holding a pencil and, things like that. And we just kind of little bit by little bit, I started creating lesson plans for myself without even really realizing that I was creating actual lesson plans. And now 2 years into it, I've got like an entire Excel spreadsheet full of lesson plans. And then when my son turns 2 here in the next few months, I can start back over again at the top and just start back over from square one with him. So it's just kind of I just started doing it and realized that it was an amazing learning experience for my kids and for myself. And it created tremendous opportunity just even in the couple of years that I've been working with my now 2 kids. It created tremendous opportunities for us to be able to go and do different kinds of things and see different kinds of things. We just went to a museum just before I came here and started recording this. We just got home. Like, we've been able to do some really cool things. And my husband and I enjoy traveling, and we've got a cabin up north, and we enjoy going back and forth with that. So we've been able to keep our schedules fairly flexible as well. And just kind of part of it too is just frankly of just especially post COVID, kind of in the middle of COVID with all of this too, with me figuring this out. And then also realizing in the middle of COVID that the government can come in and shut down my kid's school anytime that they want to now. Like, wait, what? And the government can force my kid to wear a face mask. The government can force my kid to sit 6 feet apart from their classmate at lunch if they want to now. Like, wait, that timeout, that's not what this is supposed to be about. So that kind of opened up my eyes in all sorts of ways. And part of that too is just kind of being realizing in the middle of all of that, that there's a different way of doing school like this. There is a different way of being able to approach this. And we don't have to keep sitting in classrooms the same way that we've been doing it all along. So it just kind of having these little realizations throughout the past couple of years, and has now led me to actually form a nonprofit and form a co-op, and we're doing this. So we're just going all in at this point.
Jen, let me ask you, 4 kids, all the same age. What drove you to decide to homeschool? They're in 2nd grade now, right?
Right, yeah. Well, first of all, I had a guy of it a lot easier than Sarah because mine are all in 1 grade. So I don't know how people do it who are juggling like 5, 6 different grade levels. I can't even imagine. There's so many reasons that people decide to homeschool, but I think the biggest one for me was just a pure time factor to think, okay, wherever my kids spend the most waking hours of their life is probably going to be the biggest influence over their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much wanted that to be my husband and I and our family's values, and not something they might pick up at a school or from other kids, or 8 hours a day is a huge amount of time for a kid to spend away from home Monday through Friday consistently. And I don't see any possible way that doesn't shape their brains.
Oh, sure it does.
Mm-hmm.
Sure it does. Absolutely. You mentioned, and I would like to throw this out there for all the husbands who are supportive. Jen mentioned her husband. Kelly mentioned her husband. You obviously have spouses who support the homeschooling as well as the work you're doing here at Convention of States. And for me, I say cheers to that for being involved. Anybody want to give a shout out to their husband or talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, my husband has been unbelievable. We went from a family with 2 full-time, good-paying jobs with 0 children to literally being a family of 6 overnight, and me leaving that job. So not only did we go down to 1 income, but he became the sole breadwinner for not just 2 of us, but for 6 of us. And he has not wavered for a day in that decision. He's been a cheerleader all along for this effort and recognized how important it is what we're doing here.
Kelly,
Yeah.
why do you think Convention of States is worth investing your time in?
Because I believe that this is the actual one solution that will actually bring about change in our federal government. I love the fact that it is an actual peaceful solution, and I love the fact that it is an actual legally binding solution. That this is not just platitudes from politicians, and this isn't just we're going to go to Washington, D.C. and change stuff, that this is actual an actual legal change that we can put into the U.S. federal Constitution as a way of reining in the federal government, and no more just talk about all of the things that should be done in Washington, D.C. To make things better. And this is the actual, as it says all over the website, and as we hear our national team say all the time, this is the actual solution that is as big as the problem. Mm-hmm. And this is the one thing that I found that actually has some action behind it. It has momentum behind it, and it has that actual solution, so that you can actually get involved in and work in, in a daily basis, and be able to participate in.
I have a question for Sarah. It's actually a question for all of you. I've met you all in person. I've met your children. What do you think your children are learning by your example, by you volunteering from Convention of States? Sarah?
Well, on the most basic level, my youngest children are learning the sounds of their letters, and we're learning about diphthongs, and SH makes that sh sound, and my youngest says shh, like when mom's on a phone call. It's probably not what you were looking for, but it's not a bad lesson to take away. But I mean, they are learning to be aware. I have various kids, and they're learning different types of government related things in their different classes and their different history, and they'll come up to me with questions now, and they'll ask, how is this related, how is that related? And my eldest was asking me a question this morning about how come our state government did something in the last election when the federal government his court had ruled something else, and how these things work together, and this was confusing. And so I was explaining the difference in authority and what had actually happened in this court case versus that, what had happened in our election, and about the two different constitutions that we have, that we live under, the state and the federal, and seeing the understanding come there. We then had a very in-depth conversation about inflation, because which it's the things that come up, but they are getting a much better understanding of practically how the government is influencing their day-to-day lives, because mom is constantly dealing with it, and they're interested. And things like constitution and amendments and all of these things are becoming commonplace words. And I heard a fantastic argument in my house the other day. The 7-year-old was walking around the living room and saying, I have freedom of speech because of the Bill of Rights, to the 9-year-old. And the 9-year-old says, actually, I think that's the First Amendment. And he's like, no, it's the Bill of Rights. And I had to step in so that, things wouldn't get bad and everyone would understand that they were both right. But, and that was just from them reading their own books and going through their lessons. But I can see that they are grasping onto facts that probably would have just gone out the window, because these are things that come up frequently in conversation in our house now. And that does make me very happy, because I think that will be very valuable to them in their life in the future. And the awareness that they can be engaged in the outcome of the government workings directly around them, I think will serve them very well in their life.
What an education.
Jen and Sarah, this made me think of a question here for Jen, because I can't really answer this one yet, but Jen and Sarah, do you guys have any specific resources or books or websites or curriculum that you guys use to help teach civics and government and things like that?
My kids have two that we really love. The Tuttle Twins is a great one to teach about government and capitalism and the design for our government. And then we really enjoy the Rush Revere books as well, which is kind of a historic or a fictional look at history, which is really fun for them.
What years I know I've obviously have heard of the Rush Revere books and Rush Limbaugh, but what time periods in history do those books cover?
Oh, he goes back in time to different events like the Star Spangled Banner, things like that, and just covers them in kind of a fun time travel adventures through history way.
Sarah, do you guys have anything that you use specifically?
I should probably do one of those disclaimers that Convention of States does not personally, promote any particular curriculum or the views necessarily expressed by any of these curriculums. We also very much enjoy the Tuttle Twins, not only the books, but the new TV series. My kids have really grasped on to those, especially when it comes to learning about the workings of government. It's helped the other things they're learning in their school to make more sense, I think, when they're seeing the practical examples played out. But we also have enjoyed, in particular this year, Not Grass has a book called Uncle Sam and You, I believe. And that has been a really awesome civics course to have gone through. We also do a lot of BJU, Bob Jones Press history, but the Uncle Sam and You has really, it's been an education for me grading it. And it's been one of those, I'm sitting here, I should probably read this book more closely. I would know a whole lot more about, they go into all kinds of details about all kinds of stuff that I never learned when I was in school. And it's really been very, very enjoyable, the conversations that have come out of the kids going through some of those things. So, yeah.
That actually leads me into my next question, actually. Is there anything in particular that the two of you like to study, want to be able to learn more on, like things like that, to be able to help teach your kids more in depth, to be able to do that, like the homeschooling civic stuff more in depth? Is there anything in particular that the two of you guys focus on, research, study, make things that you're trying to learn for yourself, like something, anything like that?
I'll tell you what homeschooling is teaching me is that I must not have been paying very close attention during my own schooling because I can't believe how often I'm going, I didn't know that. I don't remember that. Oh, that's new. So right now we're also going through a Not Grass curriculum called the 50 States. And it's been fun learning different facts about each of the states, that I didn't know, and geography and astronomy rather, and things that I had no idea about. It's kind of enlightening. And I tell you what is the most fun for me is, when the kids express an interest in something, that may have just been a tiny part of the lesson, but it's what they may grab onto that day and want to learn more about. So we can go to other resources, and then we're all sitting there and learning and discussing and having a really good time with it. So yeah, it's kind of day to day what's going to spark our interest.
Before we go around for last words, I want to say to all of you that you are leading your children by example. You are teaching by example. And Jen, I think about this often. You and I talked back in the fall, and you were out doing a little door knocking in the fall, and you took your kids with you. And I couldn't see you out there, and the modeling that you're doing for your children about civic engagement, about making that contribution. To me, that's huge. You are living by an example. Sarah, you have this broad dedication. We know that you spend countless hours, and your kids see that, and they are participating at their own level with understanding and learning because their mom is doing something. Kelly, you've parlayed this into your COS for Moms and the monthly activities that you're doing with your groups. You are teaching your kids, and you're not even opening a book. And I want you to know that I admire that a lot. Any last comments, any last words before I wrap this up?
I will talk briefly if I could, or I'll try to talk briefly. For many years, like some of the other moms have said, I supported from behind the scenes. I would get the emails and I would talk to people when I saw them about convention estates, but I didn't feel like I could be involved. And I'd get emails saying, we need a such and such. And I think, I can't do that. I've got all these small kids, and, there's all these hours where I literally have a baby on top of my chest who is asleep. And if I breathe wrong, they will wake up and I will never get to do anything again in my whole life, or at least, it feels that way. And I spent years and years and years in that state and felt like I couldn't do anything to help. And I was thinking about that the other day because, as much as now I'm very engaged and all that, my youngest is now 4. And when I first got involved, I want to say my youngest was 2. And I really felt like, okay, I have a little bit of breathing room. The youngest is 2. But looking back, I could have been involved if I had known, this is always the fun one, if I had known then what I know now. I could have been involved much earlier. And I will tell you exactly what I would have done. I would have been a social media warrior, because all those hours that I was stuck sitting or standing, normally sitting with a baby on my chest, trying not to breathe too loud. Normally I had a tablet in my hand, or I had a smartphone as the years went by. And when I was sitting there, I would, thumb through and do things like that. To be a social media warrior, you only need to spend 10 minutes a few times a week doing exactly that. And you can share whatever needs to be shared in that amount of time before they start shuffling and you have to go, you can do it in that amount of time. And if I had known that when I was sitting there thumbing, I would have done that, because I really wanted to help, but I didn't know how. So if you're in that situation, consider that. We would love to have you do that. But if you feel like doing other things, you can do plenty of other things. It's like Jen's doing, you can do all kinds of other things with kids. I'm not saying it's the only thing you can do, but if you are in that situation where you are not sleeping at night and you are constantly stuck under a baby, or whatever your situation is, know that there are little things you can still do, and they are immensely valuable. And what we are doing is trying to save our country, not for ourselves. There's probably some of us trying to save it for ourselves, but primarily because we are looking at our children and we are saying, where are you going to be living in 20 years? Where are you going to be having kids? I want my grandkids to have a place that is a whole lot better than what I see outside the window right now. And I'm sure you do too. So that's what we're fighting for. And those little minutes that we find here or there, however insignificant they may seem, are immensely valuable to achieving that goal. So don't shoot yourself down because you don't have hours and hours. Let us know if you want to help.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Jen, what about you? Any last words?
Sure. Yeah, we probably all of us out there who have families and kids operate by a standard within our own family, whether it's budgeting, behavior, whatever it is, there's a standard of acceptable behavior. And our government has no such standard. And those of us who are moms, I know I'm not alone in saying I would throw myself in front of a bus if it meant I could save one of my kids. But we're standing by and watching our federal government put our kids in debt for the rest of their lives. Money that government does not have, and it's not theirs, and they are not being held to a standard. And us moms need to get off the sidelines and make some change happen here. And we have the power to do it.
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps.
Fantastic. I love it. Yeah, I don't even know how to top that. Like that was great. I mean, between what Sarah and Jen just said, this is part of the reason that we wanted to get this podcast out there and just have as many avenues as we can to be able to share information, as with what Sarah was saying, share as much solid, good information about Convention of States as we can, and to show support, to show that, because a lot of times, even going off what Sarah was saying, when you are moms and we're stay-at-home moms because we're homeschooling, it's easy to feel isolated and it's easy to feel like it's just you. But just know that you are part of not only a state grassroots team within Michigan, but a national grassroots movement all across this country. And that we're all in this together, and that we are all we are all part of this team. And whatever few minutes you can give or a few hours you can give in whatever time frame that looks like, it's going to be helpful and it's going to make a difference. And you can set that example for your kids. So it's part of what I like to be able to do with hosting this podcast with Robin, and I do the Facebook live streams and some other things kind of every other week there, and like Robin was saying with my moms for COS events, and those different types of events, so just to be able to try and get encouragement and get some solid information out there. So I mean, the website is a good place to go to get information, and just get yourself connected and get yourself, as Sarah was saying, to be able to get find ways to be able to volunteer and get connected up with our team and with this group of us, all fighting to be able to get these resolutions passed and be able to hold a convention.
This has been an inspiring discussion, and I knew it would be from the moment I invited you. To our audience who's listening, what about you? Do you also believe in self-governance? Do you feel as though you are the best person to make decisions about your life, your children, your health, education, your business? Do you sometimes feel like your values are being challenged by the overreach of federal government? There is a feeling of hopelessness that is pervasive in society today. We have elections, we send new people to Washington, but it seems like nothing ever changes. It seems like things are getting worse by the day. That's my personal perspective. I want you to know there is hope. You'll find it in Article 5 of the Constitution. It's the ability for we, the people, to amend the Constitution. You probably didn't hear about this in history class, but you can look it up and it's there.
Yeah, Robin, the founders had experienced the tyranny of an autocrat, living underneath a king. They had seen that for themselves and experienced it for themselves. And when they were drafting the Constitution, as good as it was and as good as protective as it was for our God-given rights, they knew that the day would come that there could be power, that there could be tyranny, that there could be a centralized government that would seize power for itself. And they had the wisdom and the foresight to include not just Article 5 in general, but that second section of Article 5 that allows for a convention of the states, and created a way for us to be able to rein that government back in and hold them accountable.
So it's your turn. To all the moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas, you can do something. We ask that you do your due diligence on Convention of States. Visit our website. It's conventionofstates.com/MI or /Michigan. You'll get right to our website. When you have questions, ask us. Go to one of our local events and speak to one of our hundreds of volunteers. We have events going on throughout the state. Kelly, what else can they do?
First step in any of this, if you want to get involved and get on board with our team, first step is signing the petition. Make sure that you get the petition. There is a kind of national petition that you can sign and put your specific information in. So obviously we'll specify everything for you for Michigan. And what that actually does is get you two things: get you on our mailing list, so you continually can get information, stay informed with stuff going on at the national level and here in Michigan. And then that also will send, based on the information that you sign into the petition, it will send a note to your specific state legislature and state senator that they have another constituent that you are supporting the Convention of States resolution here in Michigan. So that's step one in all of this.
Always, it's step one. Go to the website, sign the petition. And when you have questions, if you can't find somebody, ask us. Kelly and I will get your email. We'll answer it directly. We can maybe build it into a theme for a podcast. That email address is askmi@cosproject.com. askmi@ at cosproject.com and get involved. Please get involved. This movement is gaining momentum. We are busy as can be here in the state of Michigan. We are welcoming lots of new volunteers, and with your support, we will succeed. The power was given to us, the people, but it's our time to act. So goodbye for now, and stay with the fight.